Great. Thanks very much, Darren, and happy to present on Halton's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan with the focus on older adults. I also want to thank Robin, who had kindly and did a great job introducing our Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan in the first presentation. So in a nutshell, Halton's plan brings together community partners to work on issues that really impact the health, safety, and well-being of residents. These three areas of the plan align really well with an aging population, and the plan does ensure that everyone is supported across the lifespan. So this is a channel and a great way to address issues by bringing people together, having those conversations, and ensuring collaboration amongst partners. So Halton was an early adopter of the plan. It was approved by Regional Council in 2017. There was legislation from the provincial government that was mandating that all municipalities have a plan by 2021. So Halton had the plan, an established plan many years before that, which really meant that we had the strong partnerships in those sort of key areas already in place to move forward with the plan. The basis of the plan is to provide a framework for multi-sector collaboration as well as collective impact. So the plan works on complex issues that cannot be addressed in silos or by really one sector alone. Another key element of the plan is that there's always an ongoing dialogue with the partners. One partner that I would like to highlight is the region's Older Adult Advisory Committee. So this dialogue with all of our partners ensures we are responsive to community needs as well as identifying emerging issues. So to date, there is over 100 partners that have been involved in the plan. And this number does continue to grow as we continue to engage new partners in the community. So for every community safety and well-being, and you'll see the reference to CSWB priority that was identified in the initial implementation as well as ongoing, action tables were established, which were really working group style tables. And these specific action group tables really continued the work to identify issues and then really finding those right solutions for those priority issues. So community partners across Halton, and I know that there's some of you in the audience today, are working collaboratively on the action tables. They're focused on a variety of human service issues, not just specific to older adults, but definitely some of the others do intersect with the older adult population. So some of the action tables, such as mental health or food insecurity, will, as well as I said, intersect with older adult population. Now, in saying that, there are two action tables that do have the priority population of older adults, and I'll be getting into one of them in more depth in the next slide. So through the development of the plan, older adult isolation was identified as a community priority through the engagement in the plan. So through that identification, an older adult isolation table was established, and this table has been active since 2018. It includes approximately 30 members from across sectors. So you'll have members from health, community services, social services, regional municipality, as well as older adult community members themselves. One that actually just recently joined was Municipal Fire Department that joined the table. So you'll just see how broad the representation is at the table. The older adult isolation table is working together with the long-term goal of reducing social isolation among at-risk older adults in Halton. The action table hopes that through their work, older adults who have been identified as at risk or experiencing social isolation in all of Halton communities will be aware of, empowered, and able to easily access supports, resources, and as well as strategies then to increase those meaningful connections. So you'll see on this slide that there's two key components of the work through the action table. The first is the community engagement work, and this is really to deepen that community knowledge and mobilize a collective response to older adult isolation. This work is supported through a community engagement lead role. And then the second part of this, the element of the table, key elements, is the system navigation work. And this is supported through a connection specialist role. And that role's main functions are really to ensure that there's access to meaningful supports for those that are at risk through proactive system navigation, as well as to improve system efficiencies through a more streamlined approach to community referral and community connections. Now you'll see on the bottom the Connection in Action website and their logo. And this is really the public face of the action table. So in February of 2023, a new website was launched. All of the materials were refreshed and translated into 10 different languages. And those would be languages that are the most spoken languages for older adults in Halton. Both the website as well as the materials that were published were developed in partnership with older adults. In addition, an outreach strategy was launched just this past August, and it focused on outreach to community and grassroots organizations, as well as the NORC buildings in Halton. And we started with the either subsidized buildings or those that were rent-geared income buildings. Robin actually did mention this, so this will just be a really high-level overview of the governance model of the CSWB, and a system leadership group was created to lead the ongoing implementation of the plan and then direct really Halton's model for this collaboration, planning, and action. And you'll see again the representation is quite broad, and it tends to be more of those senior management, senior executive type representative from their from the sectors and their organizations. And this is my last slide. And this just really, I think with Joe's presentation, we heard from Robin about the HRCIF. So this slide really just demonstrates how well the community safety well-being plan, that's always a mouthful, is aligned with the other key initiatives in Halton. So for example, the HRCIF does use the community safety and well-being objectives as part of their funding framework. And then in turn, the fund has been used as a tool to respond to community safety and well-being issues in the community. So for example, the connection specialist that I had mentioned a few slides ago with the older adult isolation table in regards to system navigation, well, that role has been funded through the HRCIF to support the action table objectives. And in fact, one of the roles, I believe, at the Community Wellness Hub was also funded through CSWB. So then, again, I didn't touch upon the Community Wellness Hub action table. Joe did a great job as giving you the background and the importance of that table. And but this is really just to highlight that it is the second of the two action tables that do have that priority population. It is structured as an action table, and as such really aligns well with the governance model. It helps to support extra partnerships. We've seen a lot of success with this model in terms of updating the leadership group, as well as the CSWB is also supporting some data as well, some data collection work that the hub is looking at. And this is really to help identify where the community of older adults that need supports are, and then bringing those services to them. So ensuring that we're meeting the right people at the right place. So really just from this, I think you can see how well that Halton's key community initiatives align with each other and help to support older adults in the Halton community. So thank you very much. This concludes my presentation.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Nancy, for that comprehensive recap. So again, we'll probably hold all questions just until we've had the other two presenters. So next we'll be turning things over to Frances Morton Chang from York Region. So Frances is the Program Manager for Senior Strategy at the Regional Municipality of York, and she's a seasoned health services leader who across her career has worked at innovative organizations serving seniors and caregivers, including provincial associations, community agencies, and teaching hospitals. Frances has an honors BA in gerontology and sociology, a Master's of Health Sciences, and a PhD in health policy, and was an inaugural CIHR Health System Impact Fellow. So we'll hand it over to Frances.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present today on the proposed 2023 to 2027 York Region Plan to support seniors. I also want to thank Deborah Lieberman for presenting ahead on one of the actions that's in the proposed plan, and also to Janelle for some great explanations about the Community Investment Fund. The proposed plan, which I will now refer to as the plan, builds on the successes of the 2016 Senior Strategy, York Region Senior Strategy, and is being refreshed to stay up to date and responsive to community needs. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to take a moment to provide some context about seniors living in York Region. As with other jurisdictions, York Region is experiencing a steadily aging population. And in this graph, we show how the number of seniors in York Region is expected to more than double over the next 30 years, with the highest growth rate amongst those over the age of 70. Growth in the seniors population is occurring across all 9 municipalities in York Region, and this growth continues to be an important area of focus for the region, and the impact that corresponding increases in volume and complexity of health and social care needs will have on programs and services that the region offers. For example, as identified in York Region, in the York Region Paramedic Services Master Plan, in 2031, the demand for paramedic services is forecasted to increase by 119% over 2021 levels. And that is an increase that is largely due to a growing seniors population, or due to seniors. And this growth will also have impact on other local programs and services that we will be looking at moving forward. Next slide, please. So another way to look at this growth is that for the first time in the history of York Region, the number of seniors is greater than the number of children. So between 2016 and 2021, the seniors population in York Region increased by more than 37,000, or 23%. In comparison, the number of children ages 0 to 14 years declined by almost 4,400, or 2.2%. So all this to say, we need to continue to plan for the creation of vibrant, age-friendly, complete communities that promote positive aging across the broader health and social care continuum and diversity of need. Next slide, please. So as we talk about seniors, there is great variety in this group that we label as 65 and over, and they are not homogeneous. And so when we're planning and advocating for a demographic that can cover an age span of 30 plus years, it's important to really understand their unique characteristics, their preferences and circumstances to best deliver programs and services and supports. So as we know, seniors are multidimensional with different lived experiences, backgrounds, languages, living situations, income levels, health status, and abilities. And even the age we use when we're doing planning can differ. So when we refer to seniors, it can be 65 plus, it can be older adults, and it can also be a different age if we're looking at different programs. Community seniors housing might be 60, or as we heard from the VSN pilot, it may be younger if people are aging physically and maybe not chronologically. And as the York Region population continues to grow in age, and the last of the baby boom generation enters retirement, we are really looking ahead to prepare for the resulting impact of younger and older seniors on programs and services across the broader continuum. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we provide a list of several specific programs and services the region offers to support seniors. For example, the region has been leading several initiatives with community paramedicine. Here we sit at OHT tables planning on how best to serve the needs of our community and explore other innovative models of care and expansion, such as out-of-hospital programs with paramedics and community paramedicine. When looking at the region's role, it is important to put in perspective and note that the region is one partner in a complex landscape that serves seniors across this continuum. We also play an influential role in advocating for the needs of seniors. So while having a plan to support seniors is not mandated, it is important to have. Next slide, please. So standing on the shoulders of many, many accomplishments from the original strategy, we have a few examples on this slide. Many lessons were learned from York Region's first senior strategy, and many strong partnerships and innovative collaborations have been established, which have really informed the refresh process to update the proposed plan to support seniors. So a couple of examples I'll highlight is on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see our emergency medical information kits. These are a nice little magnetized envelope that people can put information in so that when paramedic services, EMS services come in and they see it on the refrigerator, if a person is unable to speak, they can collect that and take that with them to the hospital. We also have our submission to the Ontario Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission there as an example. So building on the successes of the original strategy and the vision, the York Region vision of strong, caring, safe communities, the refresh process has been underway for a little while, and I will ask for the next slide, please. So as mentioned by Deborah, we were impacted in terms of our planning by the pandemic. So an update was planned for early 2020, but we ended up having a bit of a delay in some of the work to refresh. We did look at consultations and engagements, and we did look at what our original plan was and what we could learn from in terms of the guiding principles. These have carried over to the next plan. The guiding principles from the original strategy will include evidence-based decision-making, partnerships, alignments, and collaboration, prevention and promotion, and education with the addition of an equity lens. So in terms of the timeline, we did start in 2021. We've had some engagements, which I'll briefly speak to in a moment. We also did a lot of research and did some validation sessions in 2022. And now we are about to go and have a special council meeting on October 5th to present some of the wonderful information that was presented to us back to council and take it forward in the new year for consideration. Next slide, please. So when we held our engagements in fall of 2021 through to early 2022, and then our validation sessions in the fall of 2022, we heard and learned many things that were important to seniors, pre-seniors, caregivers, those who support seniors, care providers, and our own staff and folks that partner with those to care and provide supports for seniors. We heard, similar to what Halton shared, navigation improvements were needed. People wanted access to affordable and appropriate housing options. Technology and access to technology training was very important, especially through what we learned in COVID. Home and community care supports were top of mind, and underpinning everything was having an equity lens. Next slide, please. So here we are at the proposed priority areas and objectives. You'll see that we have 4. 3 have remained the same. The new one is our 4th one, is improving the coordination, organization, and planning of services for seniors. Each of these particular priority areas have an objective to help really lead us through some of the thinking of the actions and the related advocacy that will be underneath each of these priority areas that fall under them. The proposed plan will also is the corporate plan, just to make that clear, that this goes across multiple different departments and branches, working collaboratively internally, but also externally with these wonderful collaboration and partners that we have made with local municipalities, with community partners, to try and best serve the needs of the seniors living in York Region and those that partner in their care. In the interest of time, I will wrap up and am very excited to take any questions you may have. The last slide just shares again that on October 5th, we're having a special meeting of council to discuss the proposed plan to support seniors. And in early 2024, we are taking it forward for council consideration. And my contact information is on the last slide, and we're happy to take any questions. You can visit our website for more information on the refresh as well. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Frances. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, folks who are on the call, you're welcome to pop them in the chat. I think we probably will hold the questions until after Paul wraps up, and then we can gather any of the questions there. So we will move on to our last presenter for this, the regional proposed plan for seniors, and that is Paul Lukowich, and he is from Peel Region. He is a principal planner in the Planning and Development Services at the Region of Peel. He facilitates implementation of the age-friendly planning built environment, which has recommendations that identify opportunities in the environment and public spaces. Paul also sits on roundtables of the Peel Council on Aging, a collaborative that seeks to advance positive aging in Peel. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Paul. Take it away.
Thank you so much, and great to be here. Good morning. So my name is Paul Lukowich, and I am a principal planner with Planning and Development Services at the Region of Peel. And I'm pleased to be here today to provide an update on age-friendly planning initiatives at Peel, specifically a recent assessment that we had on ways to improve the built environment. For those who don't know Peel, we are an upper-tier municipality that consists of the cities of Brampton and Mississauga and the town of Caledon. And I'm pleased that our previous presenter from York provided some context in terms of we share some similar responsibilities around providing supports to older adults, but we certainly work with and depend on the great services that our local municipalities provide to support that, this group as well. Next slide, please. So in 2021, Peel retained Gladkey Planning Associates to conduct an assessment, and this gathered information on the diverse seniors population that exists in Peel and elements of the design of Peel communities through demographic research and audits of sample neighborhoods in Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. We did this in consultation with older adults, seniors, caregivers, and organizations serving older adults. The Age-Friendly Planning Built Environment Assessment final report was ultimately published in mid-2022 in June, and it summarizes Peel-wide analysis and these sample neighborhood audits and identifies gaps and opportunities in Peel to address healthy, active aging, and universal accessible design in all aspects of the built environment and public spaces. The report has 80 recommendations that were on 7 dimensions as it relates to outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, community support and health services, housing, social participation, civic participation and employment, and communication and information. For all of these recommendations, they're led by the Region of Peel, but also the cities of Brampton and Mississauga and the town of Caledon. And we work together to implement these recommendations and with our community partners. Next slide, please. Some key findings of the report were that 39% of seniors live in housing that is not affordable. And we know that the situation, particularly around housing affordability and the cost of food, has only gotten worse. So we can imagine that this is becoming even a more pressing issue. The report found that 44% of seniors have sedentary lifestyles, that over half report physical or cognitive impairments that limit their daily activities, and that there's a lack of age-friendly infrastructure, such as convenient access to public transit, a walkable street grid, a range of housing types that are accessible, and accessible buildings. That there's a need for better public transit infrastructure and pedestrian safety, and that there is a need for more park amenities, including those that promote social interaction among older adults. Next slide, please. So we've worked together on moving forward these 80 recommendations. Some of them are not shorter term, so we've worked to identify which recommendations are short term, medium term, long term. We recognize that some recommendations are specific or led to certain jurisdictions in local municipalities or regional municipalities, but we work together to move them forward in the best way we can. We have made progress in terms of incorporating planning policies in regional and local municipal official plans that supports age-friendly housing, such as housing types or services and integration and transportation. And this works well because on new development applications, we continue to apply the Healthy Development Assessment, but we also point to some of these policies that are in the official plans to encourage the use of universal design and accessibility features and provide comments that improve pedestrian connections and safety and assess gaps on pedestrian connectivity. We're updating our accessibility design guidelines for multi-residential apartment buildings to meet and exceed the Building Code and Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. We're promoting our community hubs, and I'm really pleased to see that we had a presentation from one of my wonderful colleagues promoting community hubs around accessibility and diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, making sure those pieces are applied to various developments that we have, and I know that there's a presentation later on the wonderful Peel Manor redevelopment. So those are some great examples of ways that we can support efforts in the community. We are implementing the Road Safety Strategic Plan and Transportation Master Plan and providing funding and incentives to create more affordable housing, particularly rental. For instance, we have an affordable rental incentives program that was recently made permanent by council, and it provides financial incentives to create more affordable rental housing. Our local municipalities have also provided support to various affordable housing projects. So for instance, in the city of Brampton, their Housing Catalyst project recently provided funding to help create purpose-built rental that's affordable, specifically for older adults. We're exploring home share initiatives that match up seniors with students to provide more affordable options, but also provide supports for those who need them. And we're supporting the efforts of the Peel Council on Aging, and I'm really pleased to see that some of the members are here today, which is a newly created collective of agencies serving older adults and also older adults themselves who are present at this collective, who work together to advance positive aging by promoting health, well-being, and social participation of older adults, but also by trying to influence the attitudes and policies and programs to incorporate the voices of older persons. This group has 5 roundtables that reflect priorities on healthy aging, building community, housing, staying mobile, and safety, and I'm really pleased that the Region of Peel has representation on all of these roundtables. We work with our local municipalities, and we're currently doing this on gathering a status update on each recommendation. So we're hoping to share in the future achievements that we've made on these recommendations, our ongoing efforts, because sometimes we've created some permanency and some ongoing nature and through process that has moved these recommendations forward, but also identifying where additional resources are required. As many of you may know, across all sectors, there's been a number of recent changes, but particularly in the planning world. And so we're assessing the impacts from recent provincial legislation as it relates to planning responsibilities. So for instance, Bill 23 and Bill 97 and other reviews that provide updated policy direction and change planning responsibilities, or will change planning responsibilities at the municipal level. Some of you may be aware, Bill 112 provides for the dissolution of Peel in 2025. We continue to work together with our local municipalities to move these recommendations forward from the built environment assessment. And once we have a sense of which services, if any, are transitioning and how, we will work on transition. But until then, we work together to lead and move recommendations forward. And we will work together on whatever service delivery model is in place for Peel as a whole. We continue to focus on providing uninterrupted services to the Peel community during our transition, and we're committed to moving these 80 recommendations forward, and we're looking forward to providing an update in the future on progress that we've made. This is our website for age-friendly planning in Peel. I encourage you to visit if you want to go to the next slide. And there's that website, so feel free to visit there. You can get a copy of the report, but also some demographic analysis in Peel, and happy to take any questions. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, my contact information is on the slide. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Paul, for that detailed presentation. And I'm just going through our questions. We do have a question in the chat. Let me just find it. We had a question just about, you know what, I'm having trouble finding it. There was one for Francis. People were asking about the engagement sessions. There's also a question here from Ray. A great presentation highlighting all the work being done by Peel in partnership with the municipalities and township and how you're engaging. Okay, so less of a question and more of a an appreciation of the work that is being done. Any other
Karen,
questions? Yes.
Just to answer Jen's question, if I may share screen for just a moment. Is that showing?
Yep.
Bear with me. There we go. So just to share a little bit about what we did, in fall 2021, we went, because of COVID, we weren't able to meet in person, but we did do online surveys, and we had virtual workshops and open houses. So the survey had over 1,300 respondents. Workshops had over 100 participants, and they had blends of seniors, pre-seniors, caregivers, but also representation from providers. We have a Human Services Planning Board, so we had representation from some other organizations beyond a wonderful table we have called the United Way York Region Seniors Cluster Table, and local municipalities were invited in. And then in fall 2022, when we were able to go out in person, we did a lot of one-on-one in-person sessions, telephone sessions, targeted focus groups, and those who had limited or no access to technology, as you can see. So individuals experiencing homelessness or risk of being homeless, newcomers that were seniors as well. So if that is helpful, I'm happy to share more offline with anybody who wants to know more about some of our engagements.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And Jen says that's a great slide with excellent details, Francis. And yeah, if you can kindly share that with us, we can send it out to the participants. I'm just noticing that we are at time here. Joe, I see you have your hand up. Did you have something you wanted to wrap everything up with?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I understand we're at time. I just had a sort of question for both panelists, and maybe this is something we can take offline. But I find the planning and just in our experience in Halton with the Wellness Hub, I'd like your thoughts on the objective of aging in place and supporting older adults to stay at home longer. From my experience in housing and older adults housing continues to sort of bump up against planning and legislative frameworks for long-term care. So I find there's a lot of sort of tension between our efforts to do the aging in place and how we maintain those real legislative differences from long-term care and the more formalized sort of system. So I guess my question to Francis and Paul is there any real sort of succinct thoughts, and it's sort of not a really succinct topic, but on how maybe your organizations are addressing that?
Sure. So I think what we've done is just identified opportunities where there's, I don't know, I'm showing up blurry here. I think looking at opportunities for where we can maximize co-location. And we've done this in terms of various aspects of human services, whether it's a childcare center, whether it's support services for older adults. We're looking at opportunities for barrier-free universal design that may be units that we geared towards older adults. So looking at those opportunities where there's even, there's an institutional use, school or long-term care, trying to find ways where can we maximize opportunities to create a hub, to create co-location, and we have been successful. And sometimes it's not even on the radar of the builder sometimes, and it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Let's see what we can do. And I think that's something that we work together with our colleagues in human services and health services to do, and public health, but also with the applicants themselves, and just raising opportunities depending on the need of various neighborhoods in Peel. And we know that there may be more pronounced need in certain areas for certain services just by virtue of growth or where services are currently being offered. So that conversation is just really fluid.